Welcome to Paranormal Possibilities, where we talk about what is possible, what is probable, and what is unlikely. In this video, I'm going to be covering what I call the Four Rules of Cryptozoology, and then apply them to various well-known cryptids to see how they stack up. These rules measure the likelihood that a cryptid is a real creature, a myth, or somewhere in between. I've been interested in cryptozoology since grade school, when the famous surgeon's photograph of the Loch Ness Monster greeted me on the cover of a book in the library. To this day, it is the most iconic symbol of the field of cryptozoology, and whether or not the surgeon's photo is a lake monster or a cutout shape attached to a toy submarine, it shows why my Four Rules of Cryptozoology can be a valuable tool in discerning the likelihood of existence. My approach isn't as a skeptic or believer. My approach is to look at what may be and then imagine that world. So with that, let's dive in. I want to mention quickly that these rules aren't based on sightings, which rely on eyewitness testimony, images with no size comparison or out of focus or grainy, and stories that we weren't there for. That doesn't diminish any of these avenues of existence, but the Four Rules of Cryptozoology focus entirely on the creature itself. Rule number 1, does the cryptid's morphology align with known biology? Every animal on Earth belongs to a set of taxonomic category, and every category has its own rules on what appearance a creature can have. Things like bilateral symmetry, functional anatomy, even number and purpose of limbs and sensing organs are all fairly locked in at the highest levels of taxonomy. It's why a lizard, a person, and a bird all have very similar bone structures. Phylogeny allows for changes over time, but because we all share common ancestors, any evolutionary changes stem from those original blueprints. So if I hear a creature with glowing red eyes, and they don't mean from eye shine due to a creature like a deer or raccoon, but actually light-emitting eyes, I raise my eyebrows. Evolution is like doing a frame-off conversion on an old Ford Coupe into a rat rod. It might look totally different. The role it plays on the streets might have strayed from the original passenger car, but it still shares four wheels, a steering system, and an internal combustion engine. In other words, it is still a product of what it came from. So when we think about a specific cryptid, our first question is simply, does its anatomy resemble something nature would plausibly build? If it appears to be a mammal, does it have four limbs, two eyes, a nose, and a mouth mounted around a skull? If it appears to be a fish, does it have a narrow slipstream body and widening fins or paddles? Obviously, there are exceptions, and millions of years of evolution might erase some of the inherited clues, but vestigial forms can still point to the original organism. Rule number 2, has a similar creature existed before, or is there a plausible evolutionary pathway? So similar to rule number 1, this explores whether or not there has ever been a documented creature that fits these parameters somewhere in the fossil record. For example, the Teratorn was a large North American bird that could fit the description of a Thunderbird. When I hear eyewitness accounts or read news stories about a creature that doesn't match anything in nature ever, I'm more hesitant to take it at face value, not because it's impossible, but because it seems less likely that something would evolve into a completely unique creature that doesn't have any analog in all of the life forms that have ever existed. Rule number 3, do the local people have long-standing stories about such a creature? Many skeptics are quick to dismiss oral histories and local lore as myth and legend. An argument for Sasquatch, for example, is that many indigenous nations have stories of a large, hairy wild man that predates modern Bigfoot culture by centuries. And while some of those cultures treat them as physical creatures and others as something spiritual or supernatural, it is their acceptance of Sasquatch as a reality that matters most in this example. This isn't to say people haven't been telling stories of fiction and myth since the first language was invented or coalesced, but the origin of the stories and the consistency across thousands of groups and thousands of miles cannot be ignored. Rule number 4, could the environment support a breeding population? This is the big one. A sighting of one creature is impossible unless there is or was a breeding population. Even a species on the edge of extinction came from an ecosystem that supported its kind, an ecosystem that provided territory to thrive, food to eat, and safety to reproduce. Depending on the size of the cryptid and how large a breeding population would need to be to sustain it without a genetic bottleneck, the ecosystem could be as small as a few hundred acres for a salamander or 1,000 square miles for an elephant species. The only exception here is migratory creatures that jump from one location to another, Unless a sighting is of a creature that is truly one of, if not the last of its kind, there is, up to that generation at least, a breeding pair. The more rules a cryptid satisfies, the more plausible it becomes on my list. So the more it fails, the more skeptical we should be. I should make mention, given this is a paranormal channel, we can't rule out other explanations like dimensional creatures, demons and giants, extraterrestrials, and the like, but I believe the study of cryptozoology is best served if studied just like zoology is, with an eye towards the possibilities. So our first contestant on the Four Rules game show is Sasquatch, aka Bigfoot. This is arguably the strongest one on the list. Known biology, bipedal ape, check. Similar creature in the fossil record, Gigantopithecus, check. Now keep in mind we don't need a recognized species that fits exactly, just one that shows that it's possible and fills that niche. Indigenous lore, overwhelming, check. Ecosystem, anywhere a bear can live, check. So for our friend Sasquatch, definitely plausible, 4 out of 4. That doesn't mean Bigfoot exists, it just means Bigfoot passes the plausibility test. Next up, Nessie herself, the Loch Ness Monster. Known biology, an aquatic creature with a long neck and flippers, check. Similar creature in the fossil record, plesiosaurs, check. Indigenous lore, there have been sightings of Nessie and other lake monsters around the world like Ogopogo and Champ that stretch back hundreds or thousands of years, check. Ecosystem, now this is where Nessie's score falters a little bit. Loch Ness is sizable and deep, but it doesn't seem to have the diversity of life needed to support a large creature. It is possible that Nessie's species are marine creatures that occasionally use the loch for feeding, breeding, or escaping oceanic elements or predators. The rise of human population around the lake over the last several hundred years might have prevented this usage, maybe trapping the species outside of the lake, other than one or two individuals who maybe lived out their lives in the lake, providing sightings and then dying off so that by the time we get to a side scan sonar, there's nothing left to detect. For now, I'll say 3 out of 4 on the rules, but if you want a Loch Ness Monster dedicated episode, let me know in the comments. She deserves my best effort. Next up, the Jersey Devil. This has always been one of my favorite cryptids and the one that creeps me out the most in a good way. Known biology, the classic Jersey Devil is described with a horse head, hooves, bat-like wings, so we're already up to 6 appendages, bipedal posture, and can fly. There's just nothing like this in the fossil record or alive today, and nothing that could spontaneously stem from anything. Evolutionary change is slow. There wouldn't just be a horse or donkey born tomorrow with both forelimbs and a set of giant functional bat wings. So that would be a fail there. Similar creature in the fossil record. No creature has ever been found matching the Jersey Devil's description, so that's probably also a fail. Indigenous lore. Now this does get interesting because the Pine Barrens do have centuries of folklore to draw upon, and stories involving this cryptid do stretch back hundreds of years, so that's a check. Ecosystem. If this creature is biological, could it survive in the Pine Barrens? Now this could kind of go either way. It is larger and more wild than people realize in the Pine Barrens, but sustaining a population of large flying mammals would be pretty hard to do. I'm gonna give it a little bit of grace though and say that maybe is a check, could be a fail. Either way, kind of goes either way. You could argue there needs to be a 5th rule. Has this specific creature ever existed before? The coelacanth and thylacine are both creatures that fit into this one, as well as the other 4 questions. You may also be thinking of a 5th question, which is, well, is there physical evidence that this creature exists? If there is physical evidence the creature exists, then it moves into zoology and moves out of cryptozoology. That's why I'm not really including that one in this 4 rules of cryptozoology video. So let me know in the comments if you agree with my 4 rules of cryptozoology, if I forgot any, or if you have a cryptid that is plausible but fails my test. And if you like the content in this video, please like and subscribe. It helps me out. I'm just starting out this channel, and I really appreciate all the support I got for the first video. It was more than I was expecting, so thank you all. And until next time, remember, the possibilities are endless.